Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything. I'm coming at you with another Learn to Play Traveler Mongoose 2nd Edition. So we're doing tutorials on how to play Traveler Mongoose 2nd Edition. I'm using the core rulebook right here. And I think this is episode 6. We're going to be talking about equipment. Equipment is kind of like a topic that it's basically just stuff. It's what your character, your traveler, is equipped with. It's going to be his loadout. Because it's the future, and you might also have like a base of operations or a ship, you might have a variety of different pieces of equipment. You might have some heavy equipment like a car or an autocannon or something, so equipment in Traveler could be a wide variety of things. It could be a radio, it could be a helmet, it could be a scope for your rifle, it could be magazines, it could just be a bundle of grenades, it could be a pet, it could be anything. But we're going to go over all the different pieces of equipment that are in the Traveler rulebook. All right, so I've got to page 91, which is where equipment starts. But before we get started on equipment, you really should, if you haven't already, watch the previous videos, because that's going to help you follow along in my future videos. We're about we're about a third of the way through the book. And when I go over the equipment, I'm just going to kind of glaze over it, but you'll be able to follow along right here. I'm going to read some stats out to you. And if you haven't watched any of the previous videos, you might not understand what those stats are. So I would check out all the previous videos. And if you've got any friends, or if you've got a table where you are playing Traveler and you have some new players and they're not sure how to play Traveler, I recommend them watching these videos, because that'll get them up to speed on how to play Traveler according to Mongoose 2nd Edition. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on the equipment. Now, before we go anywhere, there's tech levels, right? So different planets have different levels of technology. Some might be a barbarian technology, some might be industrial technology, some might be spacefaring technologies. When you are acquiring equipment, or when your characters are putting equipment on their character sheets, they should note what technology level, or TL, that, and it's a number between 1 and a million, you should note what tech level that piece of equipment is coming from, because if I get a rifle in a Tech 5, it's going to be a little different than a rifle from Tech 7. In game terms, that might mean it shoots farther, or it might mean that it has more damage. So always note the tech level of any piece of equipment that you have. You should have all your equipment, and every little piece of equipment should have a tech level next. The money system in Traveler is simplified. They don't have different monies on every different planet, or different empires don't have different monies. They technically do, but the equivalent is credits, okay, or CR. Credits in large denominations, like if you have thousands of credits, you'll put KCR, like kilocredits. If you've got millions of credits, you'll put it down as a mega credit, like MCR, as you can see right here. To simplify things even further, selling equipment. Referee can allow their players, if they're on a spaceport, to just automatically sell their equipment at half price. So if you are on a tech level 9 planet and you pick up a 9 laser rifle, and then later you land on a tech level 11 planet and they're selling laser rifles as well, you might pick up a tech level 11 laser rifle. Now you've got 2 laser rifles and you don't need the tech 9 one anymore. So you can sell it at half price. That's the basic. Now, referees can, if you want, make you look for a buyer. They can draw it out. They can extend it out as long as they want. Like, you have to find a buyer. You got to make a deal. Like, they haggle the price, blah, blah, blah. That's up to your referee and yourself. Okay, now they're also saying that tech level 8 or higher, by then you've got electronic currency, like credit cards or communication codes or something like that, where you can transfer your electronic credits. The issue with that is, if you're an adventurer and you're traveling from planet to planet, you have to have hard currency. You have to have cash, because if I have money in a bank on Rylanor and I travel to Glisten and I try to buy something, they're going to let me buy it, but the transaction is not going to clear until an X-boat makes it all the way to Rylanor, checks my bank, sends a message all the way back to Glisten, and that could take months. Same planet transactions? Sure, there's a bank, you can put money in the bank, the citizens put money in banks, and they use electronic transactions on a planet. But when you start going from system to system, there's no communications, so there is no transaction, there's no electronic transactions. So if you don't bring your cash with you, then you can't spend it. Okay, so that's why piracy is kind of lucrative, because if you attack a ship, they're going to have a safe on the ship that might have credits, and all the passengers might have put credits in the safe, or they're carrying their credits on them. Standards of living. Okay, we're not going to talk about encumbrance just yet. We're going to go standards of living, and you can see the chart on the bottom right. This is assuming that your players are living off the land and not off their ship. If your players have a ship, you can assume that they're using the life support that you're paying for to get them their meals. They're sleeping in a room, their bed or bunk or whatever. They're probably getting paid to work on this ship. So it's like working passage. So they work, they get paid, they eat out of the life support, they breathe out of life support. So they don't really have a standard of living. You can assume it's pretty low because a ship is not a luxury liner, unless it is. This chart here is assuming that your players are living in a city somewhere and they don't have a ship. Then you would take their social standing and you would figure out how much it costs them per month to maintain their social standing. We'll jump up to encumbrance now. You don't really need to worry about encumbrance. Like if they got a spacesuit on and they're carrying a laser rifle and a knife and a pistol and a couple of grenades and maybe a sensor or two or a medical bag or something like that. That seems reasonable encumbrance to me. You don't need to measure that. You don't need to count kilograms. But if the guy says, I want to carry 2 med kits, 20 grenades, I want to have an extra set of armor just in case my first one fails, I want to have an extra couple of air tanks, I'm carrying a submachine gun, a rifle, a sniper rifle, a laser rifle, then you really should start worrying about encumbrance. Every item, or most items, in the equipment list is going to give you a kilogram weight, right? They call it mass, but it's kilogram weight. And you can only carry kilograms equal to your combined strength and endurance, plus any ranks in athletics, strength or endurance. Most people have a 7 strength and maybe a 7 endurance. I'll give the guy athletic, right? I'll say that he's got 1 level of athletics in strength. The total there is 7 plus 7 plus 1, 15. So he can only carry 15 kilograms, which is close to like 35 pounds. So he's carrying 15 kilograms before he starts getting encumbered. If you carry twice as much as that, you get a bane on all of your transactions, all your activities, action, and you're considered to be doing heavy labor. So that would be like me carrying 70 pounds around with me all the time. That's pretty heavy. Yeah, 70 pounds, I could do it. I've done it. I've been in the military. I've carried rucksacks that weighed hundreds of pounds. I didn't like it. It was encumbering having that heavy ruck. That's why before you go into before you start a fight, or anytime you do start a fight, you don't do it with your rucksack on your back. We had quick release straps. We popped them, the ruck hit the ground, and then we went running with our 35 pounds or less, right? Armor mass is distributed on your body. So if you're wearing like a vac suit or a battle dress or combat armor or something like that, because that armor is distributed all over your body, you only count 25% of the armor. So if it's 20 kilograms for that armor, then it'll only count as 5 against you because it's evenly distributed. All right, so now we're on the core collection. So and the core collection basically means it's the equipment that's in the core rule book, because there is a second book called Central Supply Catalog, and that is the equipment book. And that equipment book is as big as the rule book. A lot of it's duplicated in the Central Supply catalog, but there's a lot of new stuff in there. This is just the core collection. The first part of it, they're talking about armor. A lot of these pictures, this is just my opinion, a lot of these pictures are inaccurate. I don't like the armor pictures. I think whoever put the book together didn't know what the armors were or where they were supposed to be, and I think he put some of the pictures in the wrong place, in my opinion. But you have a chart right here on the left-hand side, and this is the most important thing. The other thing is just flavor. But when you're looking on the charts, you can see that they have protection. That's your armor value. That's how many points of damage it stops. The tech level, right? Told you about tech level. Rads, that's rad protection, not how much it generates. It reduces this many rads. The kilograms, obviously. So if you look down here at hostile environment vac suit, it has a kilogram of 22. Well, that would only be like 5, right? Like I said earlier. Combat armor is 20. Okay, that's pretty big. And then it talks about the credits, how many credits it costs to purchase this thing on a normal basis. You might have a slightly, like if you're buying it in the black market, it might be higher, or if they make it on that planet, it might be lower, that kind of stuff. And then you have a required skill. To be able to use combat armor of Tech 12, you still have to have VacSuit 0. There are some people that don't have any VacSuit, and they wouldn't be able to wear it. Now, can they put it on? Absolutely. I could put, you can put on your battle dress or whatever, but if you don't have VacSuit 2, then you're going to suffer a penalty. You suffer -2 per level that you don't have. So like if this is VacSuit 2 and you've got VacSuit 1 as a skill, you'll only suffer a -2. But if you don't have VacSuit skill, or you're at 0, you'd have a -4. You got mesh. That doesn't look like mesh to me. Flak jacket, I think that one's okay. Jack, okay, that kind of looks like that. Mesh is supposed to be like chainmail, not plates. Okay, and then reflect should be more reflective because that's what it represents. It's reflective armor that lasers bounce off of. Cloth is supposed to be more like ballistic. It's supposed to be more like your Vietnam flak vests or the armor that maybe a demolitions operative would wear. It'd be really thick padded cloth. Higher tech cloth is supposed to be concealable under clothing. That's not what that is, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. The battle dress on this page looks bonkers. I understand all the attachments that go onto it. Great. The helmet would never look like that. Or maybe this is a non-Imperial battle dress, because Imperial battle dress has a distinctive look, like with a conical helmet and stuff like that. So you should look up some pictures on Imperial battle dress. It looks really cool. These are options here that they're showing you. Battle dress is a powered set of armor. It's armor that is reserved for like the Marines or the military in the Empire, if you're in the Empire. Otherwise, it's just another set of armor. But it enhances your strength and it lets you have like an unlimited amount of endurance because it does all the work for you. Kind of like the Martian Marine in The Expanse. She's wearing battle dress because her armor makes her stronger. There are certain things that you can add to it. Well, this says strength and dex are +4. Dex? Okay. And it's got a computer inside. And of course, it's got air supply and all that, but okay. But these attachments don't necessarily have to go only on battle dress. You could put these on a lot of different types of armors. But Chameleon basically makes you look invisible to infrared. You can put a grav belt on your armor, or you can get a med kit built in where the med kit will inject you with certain things. Smart fabric, thruster packs, self-sealing. There's all different kinds of things. Okay, now this vac suit, does that really look like a spacesuit? I mean, that's what a vac suit is. A vac suit is supposed to be kind of like a spacesuit. And I don't know, I just don't like that spacesuit design. And then Ablat. Ablat's supposed to be an ablative armor that when you get hit, it breaks off, but it absorbs a lot of that damage. And then there's combat armor, which that could definitely be combat armor, but I'd give them a better helmet. And then hostile environment suit. Sure, that could be a hostile environment suit. Looks a lot like a vac suit. almost exactly like the vac suit, but it shouldn't be. Augments in the core collection. Augments are kind of like cybernetics, things that you can put in your body, change your arm out, add like a chip in your head. These are augments. And you can like increase your stats. You can give your eyes binoculars, or you can have like a communicator built into your ears, or you can actually have your skin, subdermal armor, turned into armor. And then a wafer jack is basically an SD card slot. So you can plug it like a card into your head, learn a skill. Now on page 100 and 101, they show some possible advertisements for augments. Clear vision, cybernetic eye. Enhanced vision. A traveler can be implanted with cybernetic eyes, giving him the ability of a set of binoculars and infrared and light intensifier goggles. Tech level 13. Now, when it talks about installing augments, that has something to do with finding a doctor that's going to do it for you. You might have to wait time, and it might be illegal. Going past augments, we're going to communicators 102. You probably have a communicator in your hand right now, right? It's basically a cell phone, right? Cell phones are communicators, but a cell phone relies on a network of either satellites or cell towers to be able to be used, because it broadcasts to a provider to do communications. Well, these communicators are like walkie-talkies, right? But they have the capabilities of a cell phone, or stronger. Because you got tech level 5, walkie-talkie, World War II walkie-talkie, all the way up to tech level 14, which has computer values. Anything over tech 9 is considered a computer, right? And you can see on the range just how far it can transmit to another walkie-talkie, right? So if you had a tech level 12 handheld communicator, it's 1 kilogram, so it's a couple of pounds. It's a big thing. You can reach out 10,000 kilometers and talk to somebody. Laser transceivers, there's like a laser communicator. You've got to get it lined up just right, and you shoot a laser to someone. It's usually like militaries will use this because it can't be intercepted. It's not like a radio that broadcasts 360 degrees. This laser shoots straight at your recipient, and the only way to intercept it is to be actually in the laser stream. So people will communicate with planets, like the moon to the planet, or they'll communicate from hill to hill, and it won't be easily intercepted. And so militaries will use a lot of those laser communicators. Bugs. It's not like an ant. It's actually like you're bugging someone's apartment, or you're bugging their office or their phone or something like that, so you can listen in. It's a surveillance tool. Then there's ComDot. A ComDot is kind of like a Bluetooth earpiece, right? But instead of it being the Bluetooth earpiece, it's just a little dot that you just stick to your neck, right? And the ComDot is kind of like it lets you communicate with your communicator without having to have it in your hand. It also uses the computer in your communicator to be like your personal assistant, kind of like, Siri or Cortana or Alexa or any of those. That it basically allows you to like set appointments and have it monitor your finances and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty smart. And then you have Mobilecom, transceiver. Now let's talk about computers and software. Computers today are way smaller than yesterday. So like the computers that put men on the moon filled rooms. The computers today, if we were to send someone to the moon, I could do everything that the computer that filled the room can do, I could do on a laptop, right? And so you can only imagine another 100 years from now, those computers will be smaller than my cell phone. And then another 100 years after that, you can assume that the computers would be even smaller, maybe in that ComDot, or who knows what, in a little chip. You look at tech level from 7 to 14, and you can see the strength of the computer, and then you can see the weight of the computer goes way down. So a tech level 14 computer is only 0.5 kilograms, which is about a pound. Yeah, here's a data wafer, tech 10. They're the size of a credit card. I would say SD card. Okay, and then there are certain softwares that you can use in your computers. Now you see your computer values, the 1 through 5. That's how much processing power that computer has. Now you need a certain, or processing power slash memory slash who knows what. It's basically the power of the computer. If you come over here to the software, you can have a number of bandwidths equal to or less than the computer. So if you've got a computer of 3, I could have programs that total 3 running. I could have more, but I have to switch out which ones are running, right? Because it can only run so many programs. And these are a bunch of them. You got the interface, it's always included, right? It's Windows. And then you've got you get free security, right? That's another 0. But everything else is going to cost bandwidth, except for Agent 0. What's that? Agent packages have an electronics computer skill equal to their bandwidth and can carry out tasks assigned to them. Okay, so you could have a database, a translator. That's always good for talking to aliens. You can have an expert. The expert, like, it's like Google. No, you would ask it, like, how do I change a tire? And it would tell you exactly how to do it. If it was a mechanical expert, that kind of stuff. Okay, so these are options. And there's this list is expanded in the Central Supply Catalog. Let's talk about medical and care supplies. Okay, this is kind of important because most of your adventurers are going to get injured. They just are, right? Or they're going to injure someone else and they're going to want to try to save them. First aid can be done with like a med kit or a doctor or just a bandage or just a rag or whatever. That's first aid. But when you go to like a hospital, that's extended care and that's a little bit different. But not counting those, there's something called drugs. There's medicine I would consider a drug that was medicine, that was medicinal, is not what Traveller counts as a drug. A drug is something outside of the normal. Try to wrap your head around that. Cryobirth. If you put somebody in suspended animation, they will not deteriorate or they will not age or they won't die until you get them to the hospital. So it's like an emergency stop on everything they're doing. And then when you get them to the hospital, they thaw them out and then perform surgery. Okay. A med kit, depending on the tech level of your med kit, because it might be like stitches, or it might be a spray that seals the wound, or it might be just a scanner that you wave over and the beams heal you. Depends on what tech level you're at. So at tech level 0, it's bandages, right? But at tech level 10, you get a +1 in your med kit skills. And then tech 12 +2 and tech 14 is +3. Simple enough. Okay, let's talk about some of the drugs, because drugs, they're not all bad. Anagathics. Anagathics is a drug that you have to take if you want to stop aging. It prevents you from aging. You can get as old as you want as long as you keep taking anagathics. As soon as you stop taking anagathics, all your aging catches up to you. So you age overnight. Okay? Anti-rad. Anti-rad will help you if you've been radiated. You can take this anti-rad and it'll absorb 100 rads per dose. Combat drugs. Your players are going to want it. You get +4 in your initiative rolls. You get a free reaction every round with no penalties. And it reduces all damage sustained by 2. It kicks in around 20 seconds, which is 3 rounds, after ingestion or injection, and lasts for 10 minutes. That's quite a bit of time. Your combat is probably going to be over by that time. But when it wears off, you become fatigued. Like, oh. When the fight's over, you can get fatigued. You can just go, oh, I just got rest. Okay, fast drug. This one I kind of love, actually. There's something called slow drug as well, fast and slow. To me, they're worded opposite, but I understand why they're worded this way. Fast drug, it's called hibernation. This drug puts the user in a state of suspended animation. Why would it be called fast? Well, it's because the user sees everything around him moving really fast because he is slow, right? It slows him down, making everything else look like it's going super fast. So they call it fast drug. It's based on the user, not what it's doing to you. It's the user's perception. He has a metallic rate of 60 to 1. So if he needs to heal, let's say 24 hours, you give him fast drug, 30 minutes later he's healed. All right, now there's slow drug. I wanted to talk about slow drug because it's similar to fast drug. It's a variant of the accelerator, and it can only be applied in medical facilities. It allows you to basically heal 60 days of healing in one day. So if you need to heal multiple days, you can take the medical slow. Now, if you take it outside of medical facilities, it basically kills you. So make sure only hospitals are issuing that. In Old Traveler, they used to call slow drug basically the drug that made you feel like everyone else was moving slow and it sped you up. Well, I don't think they're doing that. They're not calling that slow anymore. I think that's part of what combat drugs are, or maybe what stims are. Let's keep reading. Medicinal drugs, low tech. Vaccines, antibiotics range from 5 credits to several thousand, depending on the rarity and medical skill. Yeah, so that's just basics. And then metabolic accelerator. These boost the user's reaction time to superhuman levels. Okay, so they're changing slow to metabolic accelerator. The user, everyone else appears to be moving slow. The traveler in combat gains +8 to all his initiative rolls and also gains 2 free reactions every round with no penalty. It kicks in 45 seconds after injection and lasts for 10 minutes. When the drug wears off, the user's system crashes. He will suffer 2 dice points of damage and is fatigued. Be able to run all over the place and do everything you need to do, but then at the end you're gonna, right? So that makes it a little bit stronger than. That's why they don't use it in combat drugs, because they're going to take damage. Panaceus. It's a wide-spectrum medicinal drug specifically designed not to interact harmfully and therefore be used on any wound or illness and guaranteed not to make things worse. You can make a medicine check if you have Medic 0, treat an infection or a disease with it. Okay, stims. These remove fatigue, though at a cost. A traveler who uses stims removes fatigue, but also sustains a point of damage. If stims are used repeatedly without natural sleep in between, the user suffers additional points of damage every time. So 1 on the first, 2 on the second, 3 on the third, etc. And then there's a bunch of other drugs that you can either make up or Central Supply catalog. Well, let's talk about sensors. Remember, this is sci-fi. You don't have just your Mark I eyeballs. You can use binoculars to enhance that, or a bioscanner, something to sniff out if there's any life in the area. Densiometers, that is really cool. It is like a radar, but it measures the density of the items. So it like passes through everything, and you get like, it'll tell you like where the wall is, where the person is, where the couch is, where the TV is, based on the density and the non-density, like the air between densities. So you can actually map out an area using a densiometer. It makes a 3-dimensional image. EM probe, that's electromagnetic probe. So it's detecting bugs and anything putting out some kind of electromagnetic signal. A Geiger counter, you know what that does. Infrared goggles, you know what that does. Light intensifier goggles. Okay, that's basically not infrared. It takes the ambient light in the area and it enhances it like a million times. We use those today in the military. NAS. It's a backpack, right? And it's a handheld unit. It's a neural activity sensor. So it's detecting brain waves. So that's one way you can detect if there's life in the area. Survival gear and supplies. You know, you get the idea. Here's the chart right here. Artificial gill, grab belt, habitat, breather mask. Okay, now sometimes you need a respirator or a breather mask or a filter mask because you might go down to a planet that's got a polluted atmosphere, right? You just can't walk around in a vac suit all day. So you put one of those masks on. You would need a respirator if there's low atmosphere, like not a full atmosphere. It's a very thin atmosphere, like you're up in the mountains. You might need a respirator to help you breathe. Now, a breather mask would be like you're underwater, you know. Artificial gill would definitely be underwater. Toolkits, you know, like if you need to fix the engines, you might need an engineering toolkit. If you want to fix like the door, you might need a mechanical toolkit. You might want a forensics toolkit or a surveying kit. It's up to you. And then give you some pictures on the next page. 114 shows you like the filter mask and the breather mask and the artificial gill. And then down here you got a respirator showing you a tent, like you don't know what a tent looks like. Okay, rescue balls. Pretty important. 115. Rescue ball can be folded down into a small little bag, right, that you put in usually in airlocks or in staterooms of your passengers, so that if the ship goes to vacuum, they can just pull the ball out, climb inside and zip it up, and then they have air inside this ball and they won't be exposed to vacuum. It's kind of like it's like a cheap lifeboat. Okay, then we're going to start talking about weapons. You got melee weapons, and they have a variety of different melee weapons, all the way from like blade, all the way down to unarmed, which are your fists. But you got stun sticks as well. So some of these weapons were never in Original Traveler. Some of them have always been around, like the broadsword. That's a two-handed sword is really what they should call it. And here's their damage values, their traits, their cost, kilograms, tech level. Slug throwers. Slug throwers are guns that you would find that would fire bullets. Okay? It has some kind of material item that's shooting out from it. Not all slug throwers will affect you in 0G. You think that you're firing a submachine gun, you're going to go flying backwards in 0G. Well, that would be true, unless it's a specific type of submachine gun, like the accelerator rifle. Right? The accelerator rifle has no recoil. Why? Because it doesn't shoot a bullet. It shoots a missile. The bullet it fires is just barely leaving the barrel, super slow velocity, right? So you have a little bit of recoil, but it's not enough for you to even notice. And then as soon as the bullet leaves the barrel, the little jet engine accelerates and flies across the room and hits your target. See where it says assault, on this page 119, where it says assault rifle and auto rifle? I think that should be reversed. I think this should be the assault rifle, and I think that should be the auto rifle. My personal opinion. Gauss, that's pretty cool. Gauss, it fires needles with an electromagnetic barrel. So it's kind of like a railgun, if you want to call it that. Yeah, it's kind of like a railgun because it has an electromagnetic barrel. It accelerates the needle at super high velocities. It does a lot of damage. So does the Gauss rifle. Snub pistol. Okay, a snub pistol has low recoil as well because it fires basically the same thing that the accelerator rifle fires. And that's why you would use it on board a spacecraft, because if it goes to 0G, you don't fall over. Okay, then there's energy weapons. There's pretty much one type of energy weapon that the players should be concerned with, and that's lasers. You got laser pistols, laser rifles, laser carbines, laser sniper rifles. You even have stunners. A stunner is kind of like a taser. It applies stun damage. Plasma rifles, you can see the tech levels out of most players' reach. Okay, now we're going to talk about grenades. Grenades have a blast radius, and that is in meters. When you throw a grenade, you still have to hit the target. You don't have to hit the person. You just have to hit what you're throwing it at. It has a range, just like everything else. Everyone inside that range takes the effect of whatever the grenade is. So if it's frag and it does 5 dice of damage, everyone inside that area is going to take 5 dice of damage, unless they dive for cover or get behind cover, which you can do as a reaction. On page 125, we got heavy energy weapons and, just heavy weapons like fusion guns. FGMP is a fusion gun man portable, or grenade launchers or rocket launchers. Now, there's also something you have to concern about when you're buying weapons. Not only do planets have the tech level, like I mentioned, but they also have what's called a law level. Some weapons are outlawed on certain planets. And when we get into talking about planets, I'll explain what the law levels are. That'll be in a future video. Know this. If it's a good weapon, it does lots of damage, it's probably going to be outlawed before something that's crappy. So what usually happens is, law level 0, you can have everything. Law level 1, you probably can't have lasers or grenades. Law level 2, you probably can't have assault weapons. Law level 3, you probably can't have pistols, concealable weapons. Then there's shotguns. And then there's bladed weapons. Like eventually, like when you get to law level 9, you can't even have blades. Explosives. Explosives are not grenades. Explosives are like plastic explosives that you blow a hole in the wall or blow up some bricks. TDX is a traveler-specific type of explosive that when it blows up, it's not a sphere. It doesn't blow up, like a normal explosion would do. It blows up perpendicular to gravity. So if you're on a planet and you set off a TDX explosion, the TDX stays perpendicular to gravity. So if you blow it up at like 2 feet off the ground, it'll cut everybody's legs off. Or a lot of lumberjacks will use TDX because it'll like sever trees and then they'll all fall over. Then there's weapon options. So you can add scopes or grenade launchers, suppressors, you get the idea. Tripods, bipods, whatever. So then the next area is vehicles. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about vehicles in this video because it looks like we sped through that quite a bit. So when you introduce vehicles like cars and motorbikes and tanks, when you introduce that into your game, you have to understand that if that's in an encounter, in a combat, in a scenario, that the characters are only moving a dozen meters in a round, where vehicles are moving much, much faster than that. So they're in a different scale. They're in a whole different category of their own. They move in what's called range bands. And as far as the people are concerned, they're in idle. They're moving 1 to 20 kilometers per hour. So they're very slow. They're slower than very slow. They're idle. You have a speed band from 0 to 10. That tells you how fast the vehicle is. Not what range it is or how far away from you it is. It's just telling you how fast it's. Usually, if you're using a vehicle in combat, it's not just zipping past you. It might, what if it's a plane, right? It might zip past you at supersonic. But if it is a tank, let's say, and it goes at slow, that's still 50 to 100 kilometers per hour. You're not going to be able to keep up. You're not going to be able to keep up with it unless you're in a vehicle. You might get that one shot at it while it passes by, but then at the end of the round, it's going to be a long ways away from you. Okay, rough terrain, of course, is going to limit the number of bands that you can move. Airborne movement is like a plane or a grav vehicle they're going to move faster. And then your vehicles have some stats. Of course, they have tech level, the skill you need, how fast they are, what their armor is, and all that stuff. Okay, then there's cruising speed. That's like just traveling from city to city, what the cruise speed is. But in combat, of course, you can speed that up if you need to. Unlike people who are mobile and maneuverable, careful track must be kept in which way a vehicle is facing. Vehicles are concerned to move at the driver's initiative. A driver must spend actions every round to keep control of the vehicle under normal circumstances. So you can't just say, I'm driving one round, and then the next round I'm shooting out the window, because now you're not driving. Vehicular actions. If you're the driver, right, or if you're the vehicle, you can dogfight. If you're within 1 kilometer and one speed band of another, then you can go into a dogfight. Now, driving a car and driving a tank can still do a dogfight. It basically means you're trying to drive circles around each other. Evasive action. You can take evasive action. You can turn. You make skill checks to like get behind rocks or buildings or whatever. Or you're just weaving to not get hit. There's maneuver. A maneuver vehicle without making any skill check. Like you're just trying to avoid a large obstacle like a ship or a skyscraper, or you're trying to go over a bridge. That would be maneuvering. Ramming, like if you're deliberately trying to hit them. A stunt. A stunt is you're trying to do something that's not normally done in that vehicle, like jump a chasm or climb a mountain. That's, or if it's a plane, like do a loop or something like that. That would be a stunt. Then there's weave. If you're like in the inner city, you can weave your vehicle in and out of obstacles at high speed to try to avoid pursuit. Vehicle weapons. So you make skill rolls just like you do in our combat. The ranged weapons are noted in kilometers, not meters, right? Because they're a lot bigger. And remember, if a vehicle doesn't have a scope trait, then all attacks over greater than 1 kilometer is extreme range. So as opposed to 100 meters, which is for the travelers. And vehicle weapons are usually subjected to firing arcs. You might have straight fire forward weapons. You might have an area of effect that they fire in, or you might have a turret that can shoot all around. Okay, damaging vehicles. And once you shoot the vehicle, you do damage, you deduct the armor. Some vehicles have different armor facings, so they might have more armor in the front and less in the back. So be conscious of that. The remaining damage is the total that is removed from the vehicle's hull. And once a vehicle has been reduced to 0 hull, it's wrecked. Critical hits. If an attack roll against a vehicle has an effect of 6 or higher, which is a critical hit, then you roll in the critical hit table, right? The 2 through 12 here. And the severity of the critical hit is equal to the damage that the vehicle has taken from that attack, divided by 10. So if I do 50 points damage, the severity is 5. If you've already suffered a critical hit on that location, and it receives another, the severity of the new critical hit, you add it by 1. Once a location has reached severity 6, went 5, and because it's been hit once before, it's now 6, it cannot suffer any more critical hits. Instead, the vehicle will receive 1d extra damage every time that location is suffered. That's damage-wise for critical hits. But there's also effects that happen, the critical hit effects. That's on the next page, 135. So let's say your power plant is hit, and you did 4 severity damage. Each time, well, actually, let's say you only did 10 points of damage, so it takes 1 severity. Reduce speed by 1. So basically, he's going to have to go slower. He gets another hit on that area. Speed reduced by D3 bands. He's starting to slow down. Severity 6, another D6 speed bands. So basically, eventually you're not going to be able to go anywhere. And 4 is reduced to 0. 5, speed reduced to 0. Hull severity increased by 1. So then you come down here to hull, and whatever the hull severity is, you look at it and you increase it by 1. So it would be vehicle suffers damage. Speed reduced to 0. Hull severity increased by another. That was increased by 1. This is increased by D6. So you might go all the way to vehicle suffers 6 dice of damage. Yikes. Now, sometimes when an occupant takes damage, I like to convert the damage and give it directly to them. Random, but this one just says exactly. It says random occupant takes a die of damage. That sounds good because the armor and basically it's a ricochet and they're taking damage. Hopefully they're wearing armor as well, and that would reduce it. Okay, and that's basically the severity of the critical hits, and it's rare because you got to roll super high. Okay, repairing vehicles. If you got hull damage or you're making average mechanic checks and you're fixing it, vehicle weapons, there's a variety of them, but the most common ones are cannons, fusion guns, laser cannons, autocannons. There's also vehicle equipment. Basically, vehicles have a lot of electronic and gadgets on them. One of them might be an aquatic drive, so you can go underwater or on the water. Then autopilot, so you can let go of the steering wheel, or if you get shot and you're about to die, you can go on autopilot. Communication, so you can radio someone. Entertainment system, you have a yacht and you got a jacuzzi, okay. Or navigation, so it's got a radar and tells you maps and stuff like that. Off-road, so it's probably like a 4-wheel drive, or it's got big tires or tracks. Sensors, so it actually can detect other things, not just headlights. There's improved sensors, and then there's advanced sensors. And then there's short-term life support, so close all the hatches, you can breathe. Turret, it has more than one turret. You've seen some tanks that have multiple turrets. Maybe that's what it's got. Weapons, it might have weapons. Well, you would assume it does. So here's some examples of some vehicles. The most common vehicle that I find is on these first pages right here. You got the air raft. Players all get an air raft and you fly around. It's like your personal car. And then but it flies. And it has 2 armor. That's pretty cool. Okay, all-terrain vehicle. That's if you don't have grav, you have wheels. Right? And then there's an armored fighting vehicle, which is basically a tank. Next page, you got a G-bike. That's that's really cool. It's a grav bike. It's a motorcycle, but it flies. It hovers. G-carrier, that's that's an APC, so it carries troops, but it's also gravity. And that's popular with the military. Grav floater is basically a single person air raft. Think of Xavier's floating wheelchair. That's what a grav floater is. Ground car. Guess what that is? A car. All right, so that was the end of that video. In the next video, we're going to talk about spacecraft operations, and we might even, if we got enough time, I think we're going to jump into space combat as well. I think I'm going to do space operations first, and then we'll do space combat. Okay, because you'll learn like how to repair ships, how to jump from planet to planet, things like that. That's space operations. All right, so I'll see you in the next one.